season 1, where we talk about democratizing experiences, episode 4. And I am with Tommaso Di Bartolo, the founder and CEO of Phygital, the startup laying the building blocks of spatial experience. This is our last episode of the year, so let's start it off with a bang. How are we doing? How are you doing today, Tommaso?
As always, fantastic. Look at our background today in the nature. Let's do this, Romeo, for version episode 4.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I'm in a little playful mode today. So let's talk about gamifying experiences. How
Love it.
important is gamification when it comes to creating phygital environments for creators, and how do you think it affects user behaviors?
Love this question. How is something important for somebody? So the question is, for whom is it, right? And it's for
Hmm.
Gen Z and Gen Alpha. And how were this Gen Z and Gen Alpha? How are they? These Gen Z and Gen Alpha raised, right? So they are raised in really immersive world and a lot of games, right? So and I like to say that the future of socialization, Romeo, is actually playful, right? And I do differentiate, Romeo, between playing and playful. What's the difference, right? So we have asked roughly last quarter 450 students across United States if they are gamers. And interesting enough, only under 25% have categorized themselves as gamers, right? Now, if you ask themselves if they are playing games, then over 80% have said yes, they're playing games. And that brought me actually to reflect and say, wait a second. If you ask them if they are gamers, then you're actually attributing that to what? To an identity, right? Not necessarily what you do is what you are, right? So if I do it casually, if I do it with sometimes it doesn't define you as a gamer, right? Now, having said that, we switched then questions and said, how much do you enjoy playfulness, right? And over 90% responded yes. So that indicates very clearly that there is a difference between playful and gaming and the importance of that. Now, what is the behavioral difference between I'm a gamer and a play and I want playful engagements, right? The difference is in the intentionality of the actual user. So if I would like to play, I in my mind have decided that I'm going to play on a browser. I have my certain keyboards, my hardware, my mouse, my headset, right? And I dedicate a certain amount of time, and I kind of know also what kind of games, shooting games, NPC games, and whatnot, right? So I have taken a conscious decision. When I talk about playfulness, Romeo, it's actually something that happens to you. It's not your identity. But for instance, you go to a bakery and it was a fun experience. So sorry, when was the last time we went to a bakery? A fun experience. It was more transactional, right? But now playfulness
Hmm.
is something that is intertwined with activities where first we do not expect that these can be fun, repetitive, and monotone activities, right? And you don't necessarily have a reward that goes beyond the actual transactional reward of you, let's stick to the same example, going to the bakery and buying bread or something, like the actual reward of you buying something, right? So playfulness is fundamentally important in any actually activity and even so more in a physical digital world, because that physical digital world, given the fact that there's an overlay now on top of the real world, in simple words, what it does, it transforms a boring everyday activity into a fun endeavor that you are actually having more joy to live, right? So yeah, great question, Romeo. Thanks.
Right, right, right. Got it. That's a good explanation, and it makes sense, given how Gen Z and Gen Alpha is essentially geared and wired up to behave like that. They're pretty much almost all of the time there with their devices, right? So, going to my next question. Phygital's focus is obviously on merging the physical with the digital, and a lot of it has to do with gamification of real life activities. So, how do you see Phygital and Phygital based products like Viri gamifying these activities?
When I mean, our vision at Phygital is relatively, let's say, simple. Our vision is to merge the physical and the digital world. The question is why. We believe that by doing so, humanity in the near future, so today's Gen Z and Gen Alpha, right, will have an enhanced way of living. What does it mean, an enhanced way of living? Well, a way where you live your daily life and you will have more joy in living it. All right. How do you have more joy in living it? Well, there, when every interaction potentially, right, might be bespoke, when every interaction might be meaningful, when every interaction gives you a feeling of belonging rather than isolation. So, in the last 25 years, we've been undergoing a pretty big experiment called social media. And we were at the center of all this, and we thought it's actually social, but it became more media. Where 93% of humanity on the TikToks and Snapchat and Instagram of this world, what we do is consumption. It's being
Yeah.
entertained, right? So and it's actually less about being social. Some here in the audience might say, "Oh, this statement is not true, Tommaso, because we actually do like and comment, and we actually send messages." That is so-called the paradigm blindness, meaning we have accepted, Romeo, an existing status quo, right, as the way that we do something. Meaning we have accepted that the like, comment, and share and sending messages is the way that we communicate. But what if? What if actually we have never been digitally social? What if actually being digitally social is truly at the beginning? Going back to the original question, right? The underlying behavior and reward system and core loop mechanics within our phygital environment slash within our very application, right? Are every touch points that you have, you kind of get rewarded. You kind of have points. You have loops that give you actually a feeling of being part of something. Now, how we created this behavior, this core loop mechanic, where you're part of something? By the way, our advisory board consists of three pillars. On one hand, we have actually kind of two pillars, right? But then within one pillar, you have two sub pillars, right? We could say one is industry and the other one is academics. And within the academics, we have AI professors and also digital health and behavioral professors, right? And in the behavioral professors, we're all about achieving a behavior of I belong to something. So we have built use cases where you are actually not only you are not winning something when you do something, right? When you do a quest, for instance, it's not about, yeah, I won the quest and I'm first, but it's actually you being part of that quest. And within that quest, you are highly dependent to complete the goal of the quest, which is collecting things, right? You are highly dependent from others, meaning that in order for me to complete that quest, and I will explain what the goal is, but to complete that quest, I depend on this new peer that I got introduced for that very specific quest. And that gives you an understanding where I am an altruist, where I am dependent on somebody else rather than I need to shoot and kill or beat or outrun or outsmart somebody else, right? And this provides more the feeling of group oriented. So in simple words, from a cognitive science perspective, we are putting the we, and I pause here consciously, right? We're putting the we within the digital world that has been lost over the years, which was more about the I.
Right, right, yeah.
I like, I
Mhm.
share, I comment, I post, I do, I hear, right? Which at the beginning, Romeo, seemed to be phenomenal because say, wow, I'm empowered. I am at the center of all this. And that, Romeo, converted over the last years statistically, right, into actually becoming an obligation of I need now to perform. I need now to be better than the others, right? And as a matter of fact, right, that's the result that we are seeing of depression, anxiety, feeling lonely, even though if you have thousands of users, right? And going back to what we do is we are really focusing on this new behavior, or actually it's not a new behavior, it is a very traditional behavior within the actual root definition of socialization, which is we socialize, right? Socialization, Romeo, if you look it up, what it actually means is very simple. Where two or more people,
Mhm.
so it's not saying we're
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
right? Where two or more people are together, usually in a physical location, interesting,
Mhm.
right? With one objective. By the way, that could be we together cook. All right, right. So remember when, or I don't know if you have, I mean, people that know me, right? I'm big into cooking, very, very cliche for an Italian, right? And imagine, we are at Tommaso's home and we do the, let's say, the carbonara,
Right. Yeah.
or we do a tiramisu, right? And we do that together, right? How do you feel when you do something together? And then what is the result? And it goes back exactly into the mentality that we have in our core loop mechanic. The result is not, oh, I won because I created the carbonara. No, 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 wait. You did not create the we did accomplish something, right? So we created, and now within those quests, what you create is, for a better lack of a term, an artifact. Basically, you created something that lives digitally on top of the real world that was previously not living. So again, back to your original question: how important is it? Well, it is fundamental. Is it now a in-your-face kind of a game? No, it's a playful engagement where you have continuously action reward without competing but depending on others. That gives you the feeling of belonging. And once you complete these quests that are bespoke, contextual, at the right time, at the right place, that basically provides you with a collective reward, which is a composable asset, an artifact. We call it, by the way, the digital graffiti. So we have invented the digital graffiti. Yeah, think of a graffiti, but instead of being in a wall, give it now three dimensionality, right? And instead of being one person drawing it, now it's together composed with other, and it lives on top of the real world. So it has the right to live there. And psychologically, it is important because human beings are now have an anchor, have now, wow, I have built
Yeah.
something,
Yeah.
right? I have created something that others can discover. So back to you.
Right, right, right. No, that makes a lot of sense because inherently human are social animals, right? And when you are essentially taking part into this shared productive activity, it makes a lot of sense that you take pride in what you have created and you want to come back to it and create more stuff, right? Uh, yeah,
100%.
that makes a ton of sense. So that since you have already touched on the psychological side of things, we spoke a little bit about doom scrolling in our last discussion, and like it or not, doom scrolling is essentially a algorithmically manipulated gamification mechanism, right? Where the companies want users to keep getting hooked and essentially scroll till all hours. So, what do you think are the how do you think like this negative gamification tactics should be avoided, and what you are doing to basically essentially create this positive feelings and positive gamification traits?
Yeah, what the way that we are looking right now at the fundamental, call it truly root problem that needs to be solved, is that the actual experiences. So what are experiences? Just real quick, Romeo, right? So experiences are usually events, right, that happen in a real life that trigger your emotions, right? It can be a concert, it could be, cooking with friends, it could be visiting a city, right? So, and those experiences are actually those that mark your life, right? So, when you said, "Wow, I had a blast because I had that beautiful evening and it was different," right? Or I was at that concert. Right? Now, those experiences are very usually very, very costly, expensive, right? They're they require a lot of your time, and they require quite some money. That's the reason why experiences became more and more actually tailored to those who can have the means to afford those experiences, right? And that led to the fact that those who would benefit actually the most out of those experiences, which is the younger generation, which don't have the means, right? They have basically no access, or very limited access, because no means, right? And therefore they started shifting into what's available to them. So what is available to them? Entertainment, right? And what form of entertainment? Short form of entertainment, which today is called social media slash a quick fun way of looking at media, which is peer-to-peer oriented. So that's kind of the line of reason. So what we actually are embarked upon is to democratize experiences. Why? Because we actually empower every single user in a very creative way, in a very simple way, starting out with a mobile application, right? To create experiences at the right time, at the right place, meaning and positioning them on top of the real world. And the entire core loop of the activity starts with a simple picture. So instead of you taking a picture today that we do, right, and 90% of those pictures stay on the mobile phone, and maybe let's say 1 or 2% lands on social media, right? What we do is why share them on social media or keep them on the phone if we can create an activity out of those. So imagine that we transform those into in an activity, right? Now, where does doom scrolling come into place? This week I had actually let's call it I was about to say an interesting, a conversation, right, with a very strong opinion. Say, oh, doom scrolling can actually be very positive.
Okay.
Drugs can also be very positive. I mean, everything can have. That doesn't make. You can have a positive opinion about anything, right?
Yeah.
And by the way, I respect everyone's opinion, right? So yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, you can have that positive view on doom scrolling, right? But the question is, well, are you for the purpose of being entertained? That's great, right? How much time are you spending on it? What are the side effects of it? How is it impact your life? I don't want to use words, how productive are you? Because otherwise say people, oh, but you're using doom scrolling for productivity. You know what? But what's the consequence of that? Like, okay, if I'm basically caught into this, right? And I spent more time than I actually spent. And statistically, our user interview have shown super interesting, right? That most of Gen Z and Gen Alpha, primarily students in the United States on campus, what they actually do want is meeting others in real life. So there is a true need that is even difficult to express and say, yeah, I'm here scrolling, but what I actually want is getting away from it and meeting people. So what if I can meet people, right? You see also most recently in the Bay Area, Silicon Valley here, right? We have been uncovering that all these hookups apps, right, and flirt apps, right? They're also diminishing their adherence and acceptance because what people want is actually, yeah, I'm enough digitally, dude. It's enough. I want to actually go out there and meet people, right? So in NYC, I don't know if you heard, there is one of those activities where you proactively are building. Listen to this, Royo, super interesting. What I learned this week. Proactively are building running clubs, small running clubs, and if you wear a black T-shirt, it means that you're looking for to meet folks, and if you wear a white one, then you just want to run.
Okay.
So
This is
these are
interesting.
all super
Yeah. Yeah.
interesting, right? These are all indications of, okay, I want to meet someone, and the location is not digitally because it hasn't worked out. By the way, respectfully, it is great, but it has reached a certain limit. Now we need something else, right? And as a matter of fact, this world here, again, I want to picture it for those who say, well, what does this guy talk about? This world here, where I take a smart glass, put it on, and I see something that is bespoke to me, tailored to me, with like-minded peers that have a similarity to me, will be much more pleasant, right? So going back to doom scrolling, not doom scrolling, this has been the consequence of optimization of algorithm for the Web 2 world, primarily led obviously through social media. Social media, in its own positioning, has been leading to misinterpretation. Okay, misinterpreting that it is actually social. People to understand the misinterpretation, it takes human being a push into another option, something new. And that new at the beginning might be shocking because it's new, it's novel, right? Again, every time that you transition from something new into something new, right? From the course into a car, there is a resistance to accept that,
Right.
right?
Right.
Because
Yes.
because the car is too new. But once it's there, you start accepting it, right? So I want to hand back to you, Romeo. Excellent question.
That was a great answer. I loved how you brought your argument back full circle, essentially saying that there is a gap for activities. Like essentially the world where children would go outside and play, that has pretty much gone extinct, right? So now they have to fill that gap by using some sort of experiences, and only the ones that are available to them at essentially free of cost is social media, and then that essentially leads you to doom scrolling, and it makes a ton of sense. Yeah, so that was pretty much it in terms of discussing gamifying real life activities for this episode. Thank you, Tommaso, for your time. I hope you had a really good year, and we will meet again in the beginning of the next year. So till then, have a very good end of the year. Happy holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays, everyone. Thank you so much, Romeo. Always fun to talk about the future back vision, and I'll see you on Viri. Check